It has been a few weeks. I have been on vacation. You have been basking in the glory of minor YouTube stardom. I'm not exactly sure where we left off, because we have talked a few times. I was in Florida, so we talked in person. But you were feeling positive. You were trying to get a new video out for YouTube, and you did, and that has continued to go well. So let's maybe just start with that. How are you currently feeling with how that is going? It seems like this is the first breakthrough that you've had in the art journey so far, at least in terms of, public reception and everything.
Yeah, so since we last talked, I have I feel like I've gone completely insane. I mean, actually, uh, for this second video, my last one, it I just I just threw myself at it. I mean, I finished the whole thing. It's about 10 minutes long. I finished the whole thing in about a week and a half, I think. And I mean, I was speeding home at lunch from work to edit stuff. I was staying up late. I was waking up extra early. I was drawing stuff. I was recording stuff. I filled like my whole drawing board with these little post-it notes of B-roll ideas. And I mean, I gave it everything I possibly could. I just went all out. And it was kind of incredible. And I'm trying to slow down after that and just sort of relax. It was a lot of fun. It
Yeah.
it was. But well, go ahead.
Well, my first reaction to that is that does not sound very sustainable.
It's
So,
not.
okay.
It's not at all. Um, I knew that, it's sort of being like the first real episode. I just wanted to see what would happen. Because the first one, or the sort of teaser video, it
Yeah.
was, what can I do when I'm really relaxed? Is like, what's the lowest level effort? So this next one, it was like, okay, well, what's the opposite? What happens when you throw everything at it? And I guess that's what you get. And the one where I just sort of nonchalantly made it, that one's doing a lot better. But
Do
I'm
you think that the difference there in terms of viewership is due to the different style or approach, or do you think it's more just the topic and all
I
that?
think it's I think it's the topic. I think it's the thumbnail and the title. Those three things. Because I don't think the video that's doing well, I don't think is actually very good. I mean, it's fine, like, you know,
Yeah.
but it's not a very good video. I don't explain things well. It's not very well made. The second one has its weak points as well, but I think it's a more solid video. So maybe over time it'll do better. But I don't know that. Sorry, you have to be good at stopping me from rambling because this is like ramble high alert area.
Okay.
But most of most of the world builders I'm looking at, a lot of times their first sort of intro video is what's doing really well, and then the rest kind of suffer from this inability to appeal to a larger audience,
Mhm.
because it's more specific, and I think that's the same thing with mine. I could have done better with the thumbnail or the title as well, but I mean, I could talk about that all day, but I don't think it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, yeah, uh, we can talk about it if you want, but the main question I have is like how are you doing personally with where things are at? And again, it doesn't sound very sustainable what you did for the last video if you're going to do, 19 more of these or 18 more since you've got two done. Uh
I mean, I hope I do hundreds more.
well, the
I
goal is 20 though, so I just want to start by focusing on
That's
that,
right, yeah. I guess
right?
the big goal is 20 or something. I don't remember, but once I uploaded that second one, and I just if you remember the first one I uploaded, I was, like, devastated, and I felt horrible, and
Yeah.
it wasn't that awful, but I definitely went through, like, an emotional drop, and I was kinda insecure about it and whatever. This one, not the case. I felt good about it. I
Yeah.
felt, even if it's not getting as many views as the other one, I just felt good. I felt like I was pure in the creation of it. I was like, "This was fun." I I tried really hard, and it's not perfect, there's problems with it or whatever, but, like, I genuinely I just I tried my best, and I was
Yeah.
really proud of myself for that, and so I really was not, and I'm still not really concerned with the views on the videos. I mean, there's a little pressure building of like, "Oh my god, now people are paying attention," kinda thing, but
Mhm.
overall, like, I'm I'm thinking about the next one, and you know, I'm
Right.
my plan for the next one to balance out this total creative frenzy of this last one
Yeah.
is to just focus on the drawing. I gotta focus on drawing and story, and then I'm gonna try to throw together the video, but I'm giving myself basically a whole month since the last one. So June 25th is my due date for this next one, whereas I think well, last month was May. May 25th was
Yeah.
the release date of my previous one. So I'm instead of a week and a half, I'm giving myself a month and just
Yeah.
seeing what happens. It's gonna be a process to develop a process
Yeah.
for doing the art, coming up with a story, making a video. I'm gonna be slowly developing that over time, but you're totally right. It's not sustainable to do that. So I don't
Right.
wanna do that.
And actually that was kind of what I was interested in is the process, the kind of meta ideas around how you're going to do videos, how you're going to keep them from being so time consuming that they aren't sustainable. And like you said, you took well, you call it a relaxed, nonchalant approach, but I know you did spend a lot of time on that first video. Uh,
Yeah, it's just in comparison to the second one, it was nonchalant, but it definitely wasn't laid back.
right.
It was a week of me frantically trying to make that thing. You're right.
Yeah. So let's not oversell it. But
Yeah.
even so, just going by the numbers, which again is probably not the most uh accurate way of measuring it, but you put more effort into the second video and it did less well. So at the very least that wasn't a big determinant on how well it did. In other words, you probably could take a more relaxed approach to the third one and likely wouldn't hurt anything.
Yeah,
So, right?
yeah. But I'm really it might sound fake, but I'm really not that concerned with the views right now. I'm excited that they're getting some viewership. And I'm
Yeah.
not excited. I'm absolutely thrilled that people are watching it. But what I'm more thrilled about and more excited about is the types of engagement I'm getting. I'm getting people leaving really long comments and a lot of comments and a lot of
Yeah.
people who are genuinely interested in the stories and the art and the videos. And so that is gold to me. And so if it's
Yeah.
a slow grind and process, to slowly build up views and viewership or whatever, that's fine. But the type of viewership or the type of engagement I'm getting, I could not be happier about. I did not see this coming. So I'm incredibly thrilled about that. The views,
Yeah.
I'm impressing myself with how mature I am about it. That's a weird I guess I'm complimenting myself for being humble, which cancels that out, but I've
We'll allow
felt
it.
really relaxed about it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not obsessing about it,
Yeah.
I'm doing okay. I have the benefit of seeing my 2 brothers who have had considerably more views and success than I have, so and I feel humbled in that arena. Um, yeah.
Okay. I would caution as one of the brothers who's had a lot of success, it can kind of sneak up on you. So, remain vigilant, just in trying to make sure your thoughts are pure. But, that's good. I mean,
Well,
that's a fantastic place to be, at least after having done two.
I will say, and this is a thing I could use some help with, the process of editing a video and posting that video and then checking it because I'm not just dealing with the YouTube videos right now. I'm also working on my website, continuing to try to update that. I'm working on a Patreon. I'm trying to get everything up and running across the board. I'm trying to recut up footage and post it on Instagram and post on YouTube Shorts. And I'm trying to,
Yeah.
edit things. I worked out a affiliate program with Amazon. Like I'm going through all these different social things. So, and I try to do that surrounding the posting of the video because that's when there's some traffic. And so when I posted the video, I start worrying about all that other stuff and I start doing all these things, which are things I need to do.
Yeah.
But it took me, or what I was noticing is that frame of mind is so, and I know you felt this when you're doing the article or when it goes live, you switch from this quiet, isolated,
Mhm.
creative flow moving space to this fast-paced, crazy social media arena. And it's like it takes a few days at least, maybe a week or a week and a half to start slowing down again.
Mhm.
And that transition from that mind state to the slow, careful, creative mind state, building a process that helps me get from A to B is sort of my focus and my theme going forward. Because I noticed that in the first video when I released that, and then I knew it was coming in the second one. So I still suffered from, the pains of moving from A to B, but I was a little bit more forgiving and a little bit slower, and I'm looking for ways, and I think I found a few, but I'm looking for ways to make that transition faster, or to make the intensity of when I do post and all that stuff a little bit lower. So I'm trying to balance things out, and I knew they were going to be insane, posting that second video, and like I knew I was going to be overly excited.
Yeah.
But now I want to kind of get into a groove where the sine wave is a little less
Yeah.
and things are a little smoother across the board. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on trying to build the
Mhm.
sustainable systems. Yeah.
I mean, I think your way of framing it is exactly right in that you are, no matter what, when you put something out there, especially if it gets attention, you are excited and you're throttled up. And that's not a bad thing. You want to be responding to people, and it's okay to feel good and excited about it. But, getting back to that baseline of, okay, now you're locked in your room again, quietly painting for hours and, having to work up a script and a story. Like it's slow, calm, focused work. It is the opposite of that peak. So yeah, trying to lower the peak a little bit is very helpful. I think part of that does just come with the repetition of it, where you do it 10 times and it just
Yeah.
doesn't feel quite as crazy. But also, one aspect of that, kind of the peak lowering part, I think you've started on a good note on this. And I think I struggled with this a lot before, where there is a tendency when you have a lot of attention on something to kind of picture yourself like at a concert and everyone's, praising you and whatever, and it's just this big sea of faces, and you're just feeling popular. You're feeling the attention of many people. But really, all of those people are actual individual people who are just as interesting and important as you are. And when someone leaves a comment on your video, it's kind of easy to think, another comment, they love me. But really, the right way to think about it is, hey, a actual person paid attention to my stuff and wants to talk about it, or said something nice to me about it, or said something mean, whatever. A real person is engaging with you, and trying to think of that like a real person and saying, thanks, that's awesome. I love that you connected with this. And if they have art that, they want to share, then check it out or whatever. Just like really thinking of it like actual people rather than this mass of, internet anonymous viewers, I think can help a lot, where it just, it makes it seem simpler, it's more personal, and that's what you're doing. Like you put something out there, you're not you're not Mick Jagger, you're just some dude talking to other people. So like I think that helps a lot. And then also, in getting back to that baseline, I think it's all the same stuff that we've talked about, and you even talked about this, I think, on your first video, how you just went for a walk, put your phone away, put some restrictions on the amount of time you're allowed to spend looking at that kind of stuff. And ideally, if you are going to spend an hour staring at your video and reading comments, make it a productive hour. Make it an hour of just responding to people and saying thanks and all of that, not just kind of wallowing in, watching the
Yeah.
numbers go up kind of thing.
Yeah. And I need to do better about that. I need to there's the vague
Mhm.
things where, I've gotten in the habit of just sort of checking it every time I open my computer, and I don't know how many
Yeah.
times a day that is, but it's probably a lot more than I'm willing to admit.
Mhm.
And, it's like, do I put a hard no, of like never check it? Or is it,
I don't think
I don't
that's
know. I need to
realistic at
get,
all
yeah.
because I just can't imagine like genuinely not caring or ever looking at it. But it's a I think it's worth appreciating how much that does affect your brain. Even if the actual act of checking is only a few seconds, it's just this sort of aftershock
Mm,
in your mind of, oh yeah, me and my identity and the my public image and whatever. And it really kind of messes you up. It's the opposite of getting you down into that slow,
yeah,
focused, humble, just working kind of state, you know?
absolutely. Oh, uh, another note from you said, make sure you keep in mind that these are real people and you're connecting with individuals. And I've gotten so many suggestions from, those real
Yeah,
humans that are commenting. Hopefully,
yeah.
I'm sure there's some bots, but
Sure.
I'm getting a lot of real or really great suggestions and thoughts, and it's just I couldn't be happier with
Yeah.
all of them. I don't think anyone said anything mean. So if
I
anyone wants to run over there and be the first, feel free. But I don't think anyone's
yeah.
like been mean yet. I haven't gotten to those numbers.
I would that's kind
But
of an achievement when people start being jerks to you.
mhm,
I would kind of celebrate that because it does mean you've broken through enough to where people are seeing it who didn't even want to see it because YouTube is just kind of shoving it at people, or there's just enough. I
yeah,
genuinely have started to appreciate the negative comments in a lot of ways, or the negative stuff, um, because in a way it's usually the angry, hostile people who are the most honest. And sometimes they will say something that no one else will say, even if they are thinking it. They might. I remember the first big video that I had done on YouTube that really took off. There was a lot of people saying really nice things and, oh, this is great. And I finally understand this, whatever. And there was one or two people who were like, why are you so out of breath, you disgusting fat man? Like, what's wrong with, like, really nasty stuff. And at the time I was upset by that, but in reflection I like watch it and think, holy crap, I really am just out of breath the whole time. I don't know how to manage my speaking when I'm not conversing with a normal person. And no one else would say that, even though probably everyone noticed, but it was the angry negative people who would tell you that. So
yeah,
anyway, when it comes time to start receiving the negativity and sometimes even really nasty stuff like, go kill yourself kind of thing, obviously that's something you just discard. But um trying to see a little bit, I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself, but don't actually think of those people as real people. Think of that as this
no,
glimpse into some honesty that you don't really get otherwise.
that is kind of how I say. I mean, we've gotten comments on here. I've had people say negative things about me.
Yeah.
I kind of think of it the same way. I think I wear those bad comments with the badge of honor, so I'm all right with that. And
Yeah.
that's not something I'm even thinking about
Okay,
now.
cool. Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions about the YouTube? Because we could flip to you if you want.
Um what's the future look like? You said June 25th for the next one. You're giving yourself a month. Does that mean that you are just investing more and more time progressively into each video to the point where it all crashes and burns because you can't do it anymore?
Yeah, so the one I'm working on now, I have so much footage, and I don't even know if it's
Is
good,
that a
and
good
I haven't
thing?
even. Well, that's what I'm getting to. This is an experiment. I mean, every single one should be treated like an experiment. And so this one I have an enormous amount of footage, and we're going to see if that means a better video or way too much work. I'm trying to find ways of simplifying, like I'm sorting the footage. I'm trying to download it onto the computer more
Yeah.
frequently. I'm trying to organize it so when it comes time to editing, it'll be a little bit faster. But basically, if I find this video getting too big, then the one after that, I wanna make it, like, 2 minutes long. I wanna
Mhm.
balance it out. So if it starts going in the direction of way too big, then I come out with one that's really small and low effort. If it's,
Yeah.
too perfectionist, then I wanna make a super messy video. I wanna counterbalance everything.
Okay. I like that.
Um,
That's cool.
if yeah,
And I
yeah.
like the thought process of experimenting. Uh, are you currently taking criticisms on your?
Yes.
Okay.
Hit me. I've gotten a good amount of criticism, so keep it
Well,
coming. Yeah.
and we talked about this a little bit briefly, like I said, when I saw you in Florida, but the thing in your latest video, which is, part of the world building series, and you're showing off a piece of art and describing the way you formulated that, and ultimately like the story that emerges around the art and the thing that you thought was interesting. It's like this woman in front of a spider kind of thing. There was I thought it was very compelling, and there was a lot that I loved about it, but the part that felt the weakest to me was not the story that you arrived at, but the storytelling that you did was, in my mind, a little bit jumpy and disjointed. There were kind of aspects of it that I had a little bit of trouble following, and I watched it with a few other people, and they kind of had some of the same reaction, like, "Oh, I'm a little bit confused by this thing or that thing." So my feeling is that that came from a large amount of stuff. I mean, you told me this, so it's not a feeling, that you had a lot of footage that you kind of carved down into this smaller story. And I think it would have landed a lot better if not necessarily like one take, perfect run through, but to just tell the story in the same way that you would tell me right now in 30 seconds or a minute. I think that would have worked better. And I know it's not that simple, but at least in theory should be a simpler process where you aren't recording for hours and then doing all this editing and trying to make things, make sense and click together. Just simply trying to practice the story in a very simple, just like you're talking to somebody else way, I think would have worked better and probably been easier.
I couldn't agree more. It the problem is that I'm not talking to someone. I'm talking to a camera,
Yeah.
and so it is different. I felt like
Yeah,
I
which
have a bunch of thoughts.
I'm super super familiar with. Like I totally recognize
Mhm.
that as much as you try to think of it that way, it's not that. But
Basically, yeah, you're totally right, and I felt that, and I knew that, and whatever, that doesn't matter. So I'm trying to come up with ways. It's funny because I'm trying to work on the drawings and then the story and then the storytelling and then the video and there's a bunch of stuff. But
yeah.
I feel like I just threw myself into this world and it's just like a sink or swim thing. And so this is what I wanted, but it
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's hard. And one of the things that I gotta figure out is the storytelling because I am developing the story up until the last second, and then I'm telling it. And even when I'm telling it, I'm still trying to fix things.
Yeah.
So it's not a finished product, just like the drawing is not a finished piece to me. It's a sketch.
Right.
And so, it's a sketch of an idea. And so how do you tell a story that isn't complete? And I'm trying to come up with
Yeah.
ways to make that faster, like bullet point the story out, which I didn't do a good job of the first time, and I haven't gotten to that point for this video, and that's probably what I'm most nervous about is the storytelling. Because not only is this story like 20 times bigger than the first one, it's
That
just it is
seems
so
like a
much
red flag to me
messier.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I've got to simplify it. I've got to find ways of working through that. So I'm trying some stuff. We'll see if it works. But
Yeah. And I guess you got a few weeks, so we could even talk more about that specifically, next week or
yeah.
something. Because for whatever, not for whatever reason, because I wrote this article that did well um a couple weeks ago, it's got me thinking a lot about that, which obviously what I'm trying to do in getting this blog going and writing more things like this is not the same thing as writing fiction and trying to tell a fictitious story. But
Kind
I
of
think
is.
well, like, yeah, there's a lot more similarities than I think you might expect, at the outset. And I keep thinking about, I don't know, this is a big topic, but the way information has become so granular and mimetic, and it travels so fast. We're kind of at this point where pieces of information, like only the ones that are very fluid and repeatable and understandable to a human, are the ones that spread, because it's kind of similar to the bike shed principle in that it's something that a person can understand and form an opinion on and tell to someone else. Like, that's kind of the information layer that we live in. And any amount of complexity or slowness is just tends to not travel because there's just not space for it. It's like only the high velocity stuff really moves through humans now. So that's kind of high level, but in thinking about trying to write something that ideally you want someone to read all the way through or listen to all the way through, it has to be very it has to be dense in the sense that it has to contain a lot of real pieces of information that they can grab onto. If there's a lot of filler and long gaps between anything that like your brain can kind of grab, it feels boring and the person is not really wanting to invest their time anymore because they'd rather put it somewhere else where there is a higher information density. But anyway, this might be a little bit too much for what we're talking about, but I've been trying to think about what I want to write about by, like, my process is becoming like listing out all of these simple concrete things that I want to communicate to a person, like individual bits of information that are interesting or are novel, something the person is likely to not have known or would want to hear about, and then kind of building something around that, like in narrative form, that has that information contained in it. And I think you get this real test of that. Like, you actually see it whenever a human being tells another human being about something that they're interested in or heard about. Like, you're getting the actual pieces of information that do travel from one person to another. So anyway, the way I think that affects you or could be useful to you specifically is, rather than starting with this large set of things and trying to cut it up and make it, shrink down to something, like, try just telling a person, try to get as close to that real information going from one person to another as you can, and use that as like your model for the way you talk to somebody through YouTube, because ultimately I think that's what like humans connect with, is that. Sorry if that was a little out there, but
No, no, no. I think you're totally right. This is this is a thing I have been. I mean, I'm insecure about this. Like, this is a thing that I have never done before. I mean, I've told little stories on here. I've come up with weird little fictions and told them
Mhm.
on here. I mean, if you remember, I used to open the episodes with like a weird metaphor or something,
Yeah, what happened to that?
and that's uh, I don't know, but
Okay.
that's probably the only time come up with a story. And if you remember, a couple of years ago, we were doing that little 2-minute challenge thing,
Mhm.
and I chose writing because I'd never really written before.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, I don't have experience with writing, and so I become very, and I think this is something people can relate to. I become very insecure about this in general, so I am hesitant to tell people these stories because I second guess myself. I think, oh, maybe that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm too weird or something. Like, if you listen to the story that I apparently didn't tell very well in that video, it's like it's weird. I mean, it's kind of strange. At least, from my point of view, putting that out into the world, you second guess those things. So I'm yeah, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Well, let me just respond to the weird thing. Not that anyone. There's a tendency to think about yourself as this baseline, and then you do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for you, and you're like, man, this is really weird. I remember when I switched from crew neck shirts to V-neck shirts, that was like a big deal in my head. Like, are people gonna think it's strange that I'm wearing V-necks? But I can tell you from living in a city and seeing all of the people, the ceiling for weird is astronomically high. And when you kind of have that observation of there's a person who's naked riding a unicycle playing bagpipes or wearing a big bird head, like this isn't weird. The weirdness on the internet is like, again, astronomical. So you telling a story that's like kind of creepy and has some blood and there's a naked lady, it's like, it's fine, you're good, don't worry, you're you're
Right,
not
right.
off the
I
map.
know that objectively
I
that
know,
is
I
the
know.
case, but personally, but I will give myself credit in that for this video, I decided that no matter what came into my head, I was going to put it in there, and
Yeah,
that has to be the standard going forward. I am an artist, and I cannot hold back on weird
yeah,
ideas like that, or like just anything that came up. I tried very hard not to second guess or hold back or anything. So even
yeah,
if I was telling the story not perfectly, or I suffered in some of the presentation or whatever, like there's things to work on. It was like, no, you have to do it. You can't hold back.
right.
And so one of the rules I came up with, which I think is so incredible for at least for me, is to not show the video to anyone before uploading. And that's been the case with the two new ones. Whereas my older videos, I would
Mhm.
show you, I'd show Steven, I'd show everyone and get feedback and then edit it forever and then
Yeah.
upload it. As if there was some sort of standard of acceptability for putting it
Mhm.
out into the public, and I wanted to get as close to that as possible before I put it out. With these, it's like there's only me. And I don't know how insane it seems or how normal or what. How off is my perception of this? And I have to throw it out into the world,
Mhm.
endure the uncomfortable pain of doing that. I mean, putting something you create into the world and hold it up for scrutiny. Um, it's kind of thrilling and absolutely terrifying, and I'm really proud of myself for holding to that. And I want to keep up with that at least for a long enough time.
Yep.
I don't know. I want to do that for this foreseeable future. I think there might come a day where I, get feedback before I release it or whatever. But
Mhm.
I
It
yeah.
I like that. I think you're right on that front. When it comes to art or design or the kind of things that are supposed to be compelling to a human that they connect with, nobody thinks that design by committee is great. That's not the standard. I mean, look at the disaster that was the plotline for Disney's Star Wars arc. I mean, it was kind of a joke, and it's weird because actually the money they spent on it was obscene, and they hired the best people in the industry, and it's like, how could it go so wrong? If you asked any normal person with any ability to tell a story, they'd be like, no, let's make the story make sense. Let's like come up with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and not just change shit up randomly throughout. Like, it's weird, but there is this point where everything kind of flips around, which is kind of my gut reaction to what you're saying a little bit with the next video and everything. This was kind of my point with the storytelling and everything, in that you're putting effort into the videos, and it seems like the effort is scaling up, which is not a bad thing. Obviously, this is very important, and you want to do lots of these and continue to lean into the signal that you're getting that this is good and people like it. But I think you have to be careful how you apply that effort. And it is the case often that putting more effort into a video does not make it better and sometimes makes it worse. And I think that in some sense, that's kind of what I'm complaining about a little bit, like with the storytelling. It wasn't around your ability to tell the story or the story itself. It kind of felt like you worked too hard on it. Like it was overthought. And
Yeah.
maybe not
See,
overthought, but
yeah.
you know what I mean?
This,
Like,
I think, I mean, I think you're right and you're wrong. One, you're right because you're the viewer, the listener, whatever. So you're just the customer's right. You are right. Like it doesn't work. But I had even more trouble with it before. I mean, I had like multiple takes. I had recorded it myself and
mhm,
listened back and like tried to nail this thing down and whatever, and tried to figure out the story itself because it's so vague in my head. And I got to this point. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Let's just get
mhm.
through it, no matter what. And I got through it. It took me forever
Yep.
because I would do something like this. No, I would do something like this.
Yeah, yeah,
I do
okay.
something like this. You know, I
Yes.
re-say line after line, and I in a YouTube video, you don't want to be stuttering like this. In a conversation, I can stutter, I can stop, I can,
But you
fix my words,
don't.
whatever.
You don't talk that way. I don't
No.
talk that way when we're talking to each other. Again, I 100% understand that it is not this simple and it is not just a switch you can flip. But you will see this with YouTubers. There's one StarCraft guy in particular. He does a lot of StarCraft content back when I was following that a lot. And you would watch one of his videos and he was great, but it was like every second or third word was a cut. And every single sentence, it just jumped so many times from one to the next. And if he's talking for 30 seconds, there's like 100 jumps. And I'm watching some other footage from somebody else, like at an event where he's recording and he's trying to do some interviews with somebody. So he's got the camera out, he's talking to them, and this is uncut. This is just from someone else's perspective. And it was just like that. He'll go, "Hi, sorry. Hey, my name is let me do that again. Hey, we're here with crap." And it was agonizing. It looked insane. And it is a phenomenon that happens to, I guess, YouTubers or anyone doing this kind of content where your mind starts going the wrong direction, where you're analyzing what you're doing to the point where it's debilitating and you can't talk. But this does not happen in normal conversation. And I think a good example would be seeing actors on a screen where, or in a play, they can't do that. There's no, they can't cut every second or third word.
Yeah, yeah.
They have to deliver a line in a way that is compelling, even if it is a scripted line, or it almost always is a scripted line. Point point I'm trying to make is that I'm not trying to like be critical of the last video. Again, I loved it. It was great, and a lot of people did too, right? But I
We want
think,
the criticism. We want to improve. So,
well,
yeah.
yes, but I also want to direct my criticism to the right thing, which is I think the goal should be to simply get better at talking normally in the same way that you talk to me, and being very wary of that direction where you put lots and lots of effort in and you do all of this editing to shave things
Yeah.
down where it's at some point you're almost like cutting each word together. Just spend that effort talking to me, like tell me the story, tell some random person at work the story, try doing a rubber duck and explaining it to your rubber duck, whatever. But like that's the skill you're trying to develop, in the same way that if you were a stage actor, you would have to just get good at acting normal in a sense and talking the
Yeah.
way you normally do.
And there's this weird mix of do I want to script out every single word as if I've written this as a story? I've seen a lot of other. That's
Yeah.
usually what the other world builders do on YouTube. They
Yeah.
it's not even scripting. They've just written this lore video or this lore script, and they read it word for word in their
Mhm.
reading voice. And I don't think I want to do that. I want to keep it more let me tell you a story type of thing. But I don't know. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
different directions, and I'm thinking, did I really set out to tell a story every single time? Or is this more just a conversation on what I'm working on? Or is it sort of this, here's kind of what I came up with. It's not really a coherent story yet, but this is what I did. You know,
Yeah.
or do I pour all my effort into having a complete story? Should they all be, totally connected and how to, so I'm developing this stuff as I'm going
Right.
and I can't spend forever on it. I don't want to spend forever. So I don't know. I mean, there's just so many different directions to go, but that's my problem. Your criticism, and I've heard this from other people, even though they wouldn't put it into words. Um, the story just wasn't as clear as it could have been. And it could have been clearer because it was clear in my head, and so um, I could have done better with the storytelling, and I knew that was the case when, like, 6 different people re told me, "Oh, I really like that part in the story where this happened," and I'm, like, thinking, "That never happened. That didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. That's not."
Right.
Yeah, so it's clearly a little confusing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and just to cap this off, my my thought for you, my unasked for prescriptive advice here, I think the experience, and I've done this with you and with other people for different things, but if you were working on a piece of art in this world building thing or project and you had developed some story, if I came to your house and said, "Oh, that's cool. What is that?" You would say, "Oh, this is the naked girl in the woods. I started out with this little thumbnail. This was my idea. I developed it into this, and trying to figure out the story. And what I came up with was this is why she's there." And like you would just talk to me and tell it to me, and you might stutter a little bit, but you would just go through it and you would show me, and it would be really interesting to me, and it would just be a cool experience and an interesting thing for me to see. That is completely unscripted and unrehearsed. And I'm not saying that that literally works perfectly on YouTube, but that to me is the pinnacle of what I would want as a viewer, is to feel like someone is just showing me something that they're excited about. And it's also coincidentally a very low effort thing, not in the sense that you aren't working very hard to develop it and to, do the
Yeah.
artwork and develop the story, but the actual telling of it is just that. It's just you talking in the same way that you're talking right now. So in my mind, that's the goal, is to try and slowly get better and better and approach the point where you're able to just turn on the camera and show what you're working on and just tell the story that you've been thinking about in a way that doesn't take very much time. And yeah, maybe there's a few takes, maybe you do a little bit of editing, but it's not this month-long arduous thing of all this footage and all. Like, that is not sustainable in my mind, and I say that from experience. I think you should
Yeah.
be working towards that point, not the opposite, where I'm going to get better at chopping up 3 hours of footage into 30 seconds
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
conversation. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm probably belaboring the point, but that's just what I wanted to impart to you from my uh mixed experiences with YouTube. So
well, that is great. I appreciate the, criticism. Thank you. I wanna criticize you, but I don't have much to criticize. How we doing on time?
that can't be the case. We're probably about done. So maybe you think a little and give me some shit next week.
Well, okay, real quick. Um, you I know we've talked about this, we keep mentioning it. We're not just praising you, but your article went to number 1 on Hacker News,
Yep.
and it got picked up by some other stuff. I think either you said or somebody else said it was, like, number 1 on something else.
It's
And
I'm not
what else happened to it? Where is it?
it's kind of, I'm not exactly sure. I've kind of intentionally not tried to find every little thing about it, but it did very well in Hacker News over the weekend, a couple of weekends ago. And it seems like there's a lot that's kind of downstream of there. Like there was this podcast that kind of picked it up. There were some other blogs. There's other sites that are kind of just article content aggregators that seemingly pull from Hacker News. So it seems to be the case where if you do well in Hacker News, there's a lot of other stuff that kind of filters off of that. So that's just what happened. It got, a bunch of traffic and interest from the wider techie nerd internet.
Well, I I see this as kind of like a life-changing thing if you want it to be.
Yeah.
This, I mean, this is interesting. You laugh about it. Oh, it's just an article. It's just a blog post, whatever. But it's not. It's This is a thing that you love and you wrote about without anyone telling you to do. This is an avenue in your brain that you find fascinating and, your curiosity is satisfied or whatever.
Yeah.
You come up with these things. Well, this is significant in that it marks this area of your life as being in demand out there in the world. And when that happens, I'm secretly hoping, or I'm publicly hoping, that is exactly what's happening to me as well.
Hmm.
That's why it's so exciting in that these things that we love are apparently well liked and in demand out there in the world.
Yeah.
When that is the case, when your love of something and demand lines up, there are endless opportunities that start sprouting from that. And so I think you should not think about this as just a blog post or just an article or whatever. You need to think about this like what can I do next? What else can I
Yeah.
bring to life? What other wonderful magical things can I put out into the world? I
Yeah.
mean, really, like you don't know where the possibilities of this stuff lead. There are so many people that saw that. There's so many people that saw my video too, and it's like you don't know who they are or
Yeah.
where that leads or what connections you make through that. It's like, what do you want to do with your life? Because I, I don't know. I think there's a major opportunity here. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's like I think I think you need to really look at this and think about it because you could make a name for yourself out of this. Uh, I don't know. It's not about the name. It's that
Yeah.
you could really contribute something to tech in general on planet Earth. And there's a lot of things that I know that you're passionate about, that I know you care a lot about, that would be very good for planet Earth, that are not being said right now, that is not being listened to. No one else is saying it, and you hold the key to it. Be,
Yeah.
I know it's kind of funny when you talk about it like that, but it's true. I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things you could add to the actual Earth, and this little blip of signal of, hey, we like this out in the world. I really think you should take it seriously
Yeah.
and really lean into it.
No, I'm laughing, but not. I'm laughing because you're like saying, flattering things, and I don't know how else to react. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm still kind of. I decided to delay processing it a little bit because I did this, things got a lot of attention, and then I left and went on a cruise and completely unplugged myself and all of that. And so obviously, I had some time to reflect, and I did, but at the same time it was like I kind of had to stop, couldn't work on anything else really, and all that. So I'm only just now getting back into the daily life of working on things, and I would like, I think, to piggyback on your June 25 goal for my next article that I'd like to get out. So go ahead and make that public for me, June 25 for the next one. But
Perfect.
yeah, I'm kind of like just coming back to it. I think that you are absolutely right. I mean, it's a little funny for me because I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere, but I wanted to start a blog. This was the first one that I wrote, and it just did shockingly well compared to, the baseline, which was nothing and doing nothing. So I'm still like trying to get my head around that and what the next steps are. But I completely agree with you, and I had kind of had this thought as well around what you are seeing with YouTube, just seeing some attention and success there. I feel like there are not an infinite number of uh opportunities or exposures to the stream of people and their attention. It's not like, I mean, I think about my days on YouTube and how well that was doing at the time. And for many reasons that we've talked about probably too many times, I wound up not really being able to continue on with that. But, I had done a lot of different projects, and some met a little bit of success and some didn't. But it's not like the next year I had this other big life-changing opportunity, or the year after that. It's they're kind of few and far between. And like with you, you've been working on art for a long time and trying to get, you know, connected with people somewhere, and Instagram has not really been that helpful. And there's just little things here and there, but then recently you had a little bit of a breakthrough where people are paying attention now. That there's no guarantee that that will happen again if you were to, let's say, abandon your current project on YouTube and go quiet for a long time. Next year you may not be able to get that going again. So anyway, I I think that it is a big deal that you've gotten hooked into you know, you've connected with an audience. I've connected with an audience. It is a little bit different for me in that, it's there's not necessarily like the promise of future content with that article. It's kind of a one-off. So how much retention I get for people just reading the blog, I'm not sure. But regardless, yeah, I'm not trying to equivocate too much. Like, it's super promising. It is affirming to the way I'm thinking about things, and my ability to connect with people around those things. So yeah, I'm thinking about that. I do think it's a big deal. I think what you're seeing is a big deal. I think it is important to capitalize on it and try and get out there and like really lean into an opportunity that we both seemingly have, that is not guaranteed to show up again anytime soon. So yeah, I 100% agree, and I'm thinking about it more in terms of what are the future directions, what do I do next. But I am going to be pursuing stuff from here on out.
Good. That is good to hear. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
That is one side of it, of this opportunity may not come again, you know. So take advantage of it and make sure, you don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
The other side that I'm thinking of is I got, and it's easy to talk about this in a present tense because I can look back and say, "Oh, my YouTube videos worked," or whatever. But or they seem to be, they're not that successful. Like they're doing okay, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I got over the years, the last couple years, I've gotten really, really tired of hearing myself complain about the whole AI thing and just art in general and
Mhm.
whatever. I'm just sick of it. And I started more moving towards, why don't I just shut up and stop talking about why traditional artists are important and we need to respect them and blah blah blah. It's like, why don't you just shut up, stop complaining, and just go do the thing? Like,
Yeah.
just go do it. Just go make the videos, do the drawings, go do it. I mean, it sounds good in theory, but it's a tough thing to do. But so there's that side of just, on planet Earth, why don't we just do the things that we think are right for the world?
Mhm.
And when I look at you, I think you have a lot of ideas about making tech more positive for humans, right? Like making it work better for people. You
Yeah.
have some very innovative, intelligent ideas on how to do that. Um, and there is this, or at least I get this sense, maybe I'm off on this, but I get this sense that the typical person, me, you, everyone you meet on the streets, they have this idea that their thoughts and their creativity, their purpose or whatever is much lower than the general population. That they're not a celebrity. You know, you shouldn't write another blog post because, well, it's just a blog post. Who cares? Or I'm never going to be, you
Yeah.
know, it's whatever. Like we tell ourselves these things. Like I can't be a famous YouTuber. I can't be a famous artist. No one really cares. Whatever. Like we have these degrading thoughts or these condescending tones in the way we think about ourselves. Well, what if we just shut that off? And what if you thought, no, I am important, or my ideas are useful for the world. What I'm talking about could actually be used. And what we're seeing currently is that people are agreeing with that. They want your ideas. So what I want to see, I know I'm kind of on a soapbox here, but what I want to see is you really lean into that and
Yeah.
consider yourself the last person in humanity who can bring hope to these areas. I mean, that's like consider your calling to do this.
Yeah.
I watched this. I'm almost done. I watched this interview with Cleo Abram. She's this YouTuber who's kind of blowing up over the last couple years, and she's very pretty. But her videos are extremely good. And she was working with, I forget who, some big company or something, and she had this idea of, I want to make very educational, positive content because all anyone else makes is this negative stuff. And so she kind of went off on that. She had this idea. She ended up
Yeah.
leaving the company and starting this thing, and it's massive now.
It's cool.
But it's kind of similar to Curse Kazakh, but it's not animated. Or actually, there are some animations, but not quite the same. Anyway, it's just cool to see this thing that she's super passionate about, like very in-depth stuff about complicated things, but she simplifies it in a way that everyone can learn about it. I don't know. She reminded me a little bit of you because you have
That's
this.
flattering.
I don't say it to be flattering. I say it because I want you to,
Yeah.
whatever. You have this very innate ability to explain things very well. And you also have this gift of being, you know, semi-intelligent and coming up with really cool tech ideas. You also know a lot of tech people. And you write this article and it does well. And it's like, I, I say all of that just so you will not write it off as just, oh, just an article. To me, it's like a sign of
Yeah.
that. I don't know. I just think you have a lot to offer.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I probably have not necessarily thought about it that way. I mean, I'm not discounting it, but I'm not necessarily, I haven't been thinking about it the way you're saying. And so I will. And
I,
I will be
I,
ambitious and trust my instincts and all of that.
yeah. I also have a tendency to blow things up really big. But
Well,
you
but
know,
maybe that's not a bad thing, you know? It isn't.
yeah.
One interesting thing is that, you know, I have the only tech product that I have put out there is my nutrition app, which, you know, pretty simple app, and I did it inside of 3 months ish with some asterisks, but you know, it was our little crunch time thing and I got it done. And it hasn't really gotten a whole lot of attention, but after writing that article, I've been getting a lot more people downloading this and been getting all these feature requests and very nice things that people have been saying, completely unrelated to the article. They just happened to tab over on my website and see that I did this, and now they're using it. And it's actually, it's pretty cool. And now I have users that I feel obligated to and need to get some new features out. But still, it is through a kind of side channel validating this project that I worked on last year. And at the time, I had kind of decided, this was cool. I'm happy with it, but it's not, you know, there's a million of these in the world and it's not that big of a deal. But actually now, somewhat retroactively, I'm thinking, hey, maybe there is kind of something cool here. And that's the least ambitious of the different projects that I want to work on. So it is validating, and it does make me think like, yeah, I really do need to get some of these things out there because I think they'd be really cool. So
Yeah. So get your schedule in place, get it together,
yeah.
and get some work done.
Okay.
We both
Well,
have things to do by June 25th.
yes, I like that. I will have my article out by then. And
Okay.
so will you. Cool. Then we can reassess after that, depending on how crippling things start to feel. So,
Yep.
all right. Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. We should be back next week, as far as I know. So, no more 2-week excursions on my part. So, I guess we'll talk to you then.